the nature of your emergency?
Welcome back to the Tactical Living Podcast. I'm your host, Ashley Wilton, joined by Sergeant Wilton. Con, how are you?
I'm really good.
When I was growing up, my dad worked for somebody else as a contractor, and then he eventually got his contractor license and decided to start his own business. And for my entire life, being a child and then growing up into, being a teenager, I remember that there was never a time where things were off for my dad or where he was clocked out ever. And even during the weekend, sometimes my time spent with him would be going into the workshop so I can watch him. He's so good, still is so good with carpentry. Maybe he would have to build something for a job that he was getting ready to go to on Monday. So it was honestly never off. He's such a hardworking man. And a lot of the times I think that first responders don't realize the impact that always being on and having your job follow you home might have on the people that you live with.
Yeah, I think that when we're constantly on and we're bringing home the stressors from work, I look at it from, being a detective. I had a astronomical caseload that I had to carry, and it's always something. There's always something more that's pressing that I need to get done. Like you control one incident and you get it off your plate, well, 5 more are going to pop up. And that's why it's important to find a way to be able to, when you leave work, it's going to be there still, but you don't need to bring it home with you. It's able to leave the trouble at work.
I think your dad was a great role model for you with regards to that, because your dad was a very hands-on dad when he was home. And I think your mom, she enforced that too, making sure that, okay, now we're going to go and do this with the kids, and we have this going on this weekend, and having such intention when it comes to making sure that home time was truly about your family.
Yeah, I was very fortunate, especially with that, and it's funny because I think of times where my dad had to go down to work on his day off to pick up his paycheck, because it wasn't like how it is now to where you can get direct deposit. He had to physically go to get his paycheck from work. And we went there, he would say hi to people, he'd introduce me to his friends from work, and then we would leave, and he would typically, after that, we would go out to lunch, and we would have this kind of this son and father time to be able to okay, here was work, and now let's go have some fun and an experience outside of that.
It's really funny because in my mind, I'm thinking of the times that you've taken me to the police department, and same thing, introducing me to people, and then we're done, and then we go and have lunch or do something like that together. And I think for a lot of people, they might leave the station, but their nervous system doesn't actually clock out, and they have that mental replay, the emotional containment, that constant readiness to be able to keep you effective on the field. It can actually make it very difficult for you to be fully present and emotionally available, or even at ease with the people that you love the most.
And I think we do a lot of that to ourselves because we don't surround ourselves with people outside of what we do for a living, or all you do is talk with your partners, and you're like, oh, what'd you get this weekend? And you're talking about that shared kind of camaraderie that you've built over your shift. And I've said this before, something that one of my partners said to me when I worked in the prisons is and this is never more true. It's when you're at home, you talk about work, and when you're at work, you talk about home. And that's never made sense to me.
The psychological concept here is actually state-dependent carryover. And when the brain repeatedly operates in a high-threat environment, it learns to maintain that same internal state even when the environment changes. So the body doesn't recognize home as any kind of different context. It basically just recognizes activation.
And I think when we don't create that environment for ourselves, and that's why, and we've talked about this, is having that kind of routine, having this differentiation between work and home, because when you are always living in that state, and that's why I think another factor is that, a lot of law enforcement has high blood pressure, has high levels of stress. There's so many factors because you're living in that state all the time. Instead of being able to turn off that light switch and say, hey, I'm not at home. That it's not a problem until I'm back at work on Tuesday.
A lot of people might see this result in things like emotional numbness or irritability, difficulty shifting into connection and softness. Things like hyper control or even withdrawal. Sleep disruption is a major one. And of course, that mental replay that we see a lot of people just kind of experiencing in their mind.
And with that mental replay, like I think that's one of those things, especially for a major incident and you're not sure if you did something right or if you did something wrong. And that's why I think it is so important, especially after everything, just to have a debrief and just go over this stuff with your partners when you're at work. Don't do it when you're already at home.
Well, some people need to. We do that a lot of the times.
Well, but I'm talking about like a specific incident with your partner. Not like debriefing your day with your spouse.
Yeah. And I think too that there are times where I've called you out and I'll ask you like, hey, are you okay?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And when you do that, and it's almost that moment of, oh shit, what, there's something going on and I didn't recognize it. And then you start kind of going through the Rolodex in your head of, okay, why am I acting this way? Why is she calling me out in this instance?
Isn't it crazy how that works? Because sometimes for me, it'll be like, I don't know, let's say that I'm gazing at something and it makes me like daydream. And then I'm thinking of something like apples for some reason. And like you called me out, then I would have to go back into that Rolodex and think like what linked my thought process to those apples.
Yeah. And we need that outside influences sometimes, because when the people closest to whatever it may be, you're not going to be able to recognize it all the time to be able to like diagnose what's going on.
There are a lot of signs that the job is coming home with you, and this could be for anybody. I think that you can be physically present but mentally elsewhere. We see that all of the time. You might react at home like you do when you're on a call, so like a quick tone, command presence, low patience for uncertainty. Maybe you struggle to transition into relaxation, or your family feels like you're distant or even guarded.
Yeah, when we have those barriers set up for ourselves and you don't have that mental reset when you come home, it's pushing everybody away because you're going to show signs of more irritability, or you're going to show signs of not fully mentally there to be able to support your kids, your spouse, whatever it may be, to be able to kind of break down that I'm the cop and this is what I identify as.
And something I don't ever hear people talk about is there are so many jobs that are more emotionally involved than others. And I'm not knocking anyone who works at McDonald's. I'm just going to use that because it's a dramatic contrast. But somebody who works at McDonald's is probably not going to have as emotional of involvement as somebody who works as a police officer. They just won't. So think about the things that person that works at McDonald's might do when they clock out in comparison to the other person who's bringing the job home with them.
Yeah, and I think when you find your job, when you identify your job as your job and you're not so emotionally invested into whatever's going on, and having those outside kind of sources apart from your line of work, it's going to create this dynamic of having an understanding of like, okay, well, that's not me. And we talked about this before, is identifying as who you are as a person.
Yeah, and it's crazy because when you think about the person that works at McDonald's, all hell could break loose on their day off, and that person couldn't care less. And all hell could break loose when you work as a police officer, and you would take the initiative to call the department or even head down there on your own free will and help. Yeah,
no, and that's absolutely, you're absolutely right. I can think of like multiple incidents we've had in our city to where you're at home and you see the news, something crazy is going on, and people are just like, you know what, I'm going down to work and we're gonna maintain this. I'm going to help out my partners, my work family, and all that stuff, to where at McDonald's they could see, oh, there's a big line at McDonald's. They're not going to go there and going, hey, I'm here, guys, let's get this done. Like
Halloween bucket time or something.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know what the equivalent of all hell breaking loose would be at McDonald's.
No, I don't know either, but you're not going to see that.
I think that it's so important to create a deliberate psychological decompression point. So your brain needs to have a clear signal that the mission is ended. It's time for you to go home. This is how we're going to be at home.
And that's where, like, for me, I've talked about this, is having that light switch. It's turning that light switch off to where you can say, cool. And I would actually practice this at work too, is not just on your way home, but like you're going and you're at the station, you're eating lunch, and turn that light switch off to where you can just be you, because when the more reps you get in, the more practice you have with it, the easier it is to turn that light switch on and off.
You will be amazed at just how innovative the people that you share your home with might be, and the ideas and suggestions that they could have, whether it's something that's verbal or just something that takes place, if you name your internal state instead of suppressing it. So awareness actually reduces that spillover. If Clint came home and he was feeling sad or angry and he named whatever the thing was, I can probably be more resourceful than him in that current state at being able to find ways to mitigate that sense of whatever it is that he's experiencing to where we can shift out of it quickly together.
Yeah, and it's relying on your spouse, your loved ones, because when you're in, and the example is like that I've always liked to use is like I'm playing a video game, I'm stuck on a specific level. Sometimes you need to just, you can't get past it. You pause, you go do something else for a little bit, and you come back and you pass it, and you're like, well, that was easy. Why didn't I do this before? And your spouse, your loved ones can help you with that.
I hope you've gotten some value out of today's episode. If you have, do us a favor, drop a review, subscribe down below, and as always, know that I'm sending you a long, tight hug from my home to yours.